It is 2:02. Since Stephen Zeller's here, we can go ahead and get started now. Zeller, we're sure glad you're here.
Glad I could be here today.
I don't have a lot of opening remarks other than hope everybody all you fathers had a good Father's Day. And if anybody wants to give us a, intermittent update on the Aggie Notre Dame score, just raise your hand, Mr. Spain.
Aggies are up, bases are loaded.
All right.
Go Irish!
What's the score?
Go Irish!
2-0.
Go Irish!
2-0.
Got a crowd here.
2-0
Top
Aggies.
of third, but bases are loaded.
2-0.
2-0.
Good update. 2-0.
Bases are no longer loaded.
Now go back to ESPN.
You're fired.
Anyway, feel free to just raise your hand. We'll get that update. Any other opening remarks? Northern? Dell? Bobby?
Negative.
Bitsy?
Yeah, I have a quick one. This, according to our schedule, this would have been our last meeting, and it's not going to be. So I want to implore committee members that all of our dialogue and discussions need to be absolutely laser focused on wrapping this up.
Amen.
I have some comments that I want to pass along from the Behavioral Health Initiative that has been talking about transportation, believe it or not. And they wanted the Transportation Committee to know that it is a big part of how our county operates, which you already know this, a lot of this information. But one of the things that was brought up was specific about via transportation with the new Alamo College's campus and then connecting that to the rest of the county. So there's other folks that are talking about this other than us. And I wanted to bring it up because that amplifies the importance of what we're doing here as we're wrapping this up, about that laser focus. That it impacts everything, and we know after being on this committee that traffic definitely impacts mental health because it is impacted all of us.
Affected mine, I'll say that.
Yes, but I say that because I think what we're doing here when we have conversations about connectivity and our policies and ongoing as we wrap this up, it impacts everyone. And other people are talking about this other than us, hoping that we come up with some great, impactful decisions. So,
Bryce, I think that's a very excellent point to make. And I guess and I didn't get to lob into some of the policy commentary, but much was not said about public transportation. But as I've been thinking about it, much can be said about just two, points of contact. One is a public lot here in Bernie that connects perhaps with the main lot there at 410, the Via lot at 410, just to get folks to that hub to move about in San Antonio on the public transport system there. But now we have this second point of contact, the Alamo Area College, which I think is an excellent point to make. I mean, there are needs. It may not be a shuttle that runs around Bernie per se, but moving people out of Bernie and in and towards San Antonio probably is something that we can discuss as we can.
Were you through, Bryce?
Yep.
Yeah. Mr. Kite? Open comments? Jeff?
No, sir.
Mr. Zeller? Mr. Spain? Gary? Well, thank you all for being here. We are getting close to wrapping this up. It's going to be a few more meetings, but we do have a rough draft that I've shared with the committee. Bob has looked at it, and as Bob's agreed to write an executive summary. The rough draft still has a lot of work to go, and we still have to fill in the long and short-term projects that we're in the process of identifying. But I know that people are anxious for us to get through with this. Many of those anxious people are around this table. Just hang in there, we'll get there. Next up is a consideration of the minutes from May 31st and June the 7th. Thank you again for getting all of these things done on time, Erica, and really, you stayed true to your purpose. We asked for detailed minutes, and they are always very, very detailed, so thank you.
Move to approve both set of minutes.
Is there objection to approving the minutes? Hearing none, minutes are approved. We now get to public comment. We'd ask that members of the public have comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. I'm going to start this time with our Zoom attendee. I see that Ben Eldridge has joined us on Zoom. And Ms. Deaver, do you have any comments for the during public comment period?
I do not. Thank you.
All right. Any members of the public here have comments? Lance Kyle.
Texas A&M University, is that accredited? No. I just
think
want
your
to
time is up.
It's 3-0.
It's and ABET certified, yes.
Hey, Don and Bob, I want to apologize for interrupting last time. You guys have been very accommodating. I got to be honest with this this committee. Very, very much very open to the public. The uploaded videos and such. Just very public about everything. Very open, as opposed to the Burning Water Committee. Thank you for structuring it that way. I want to apologize for last time interrupting. It's just that, again, my name's Lance Kyle, 226 Cascade Caverns Road. I just want to apologize for that interruption. It's just every time I hear Cascade Caverns Road and Fredericksburg Road, to me, those are controversial projects. John. Anyway, I've been watching this incremental approach that the city's been having towards Cascade Caverns Road the last few years, and it's all part of this 50-year plan to put in bypass roads and loop roads around Bernie. I keep watching them get this federal funding to, widen and lengthen, widen and improve Cascade Caverns Road, turn it into a highway. It's very upsetting. The city reminds me of that old saying about communists, especially Russian communists. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. Every time, it's like the Berlin Missile Crisis, the Cuban Missile Crisis. When the people called out Khrushchev, he momentarily backed down and whittled back his military, but then again, a few years later, you'd see them in full force again, pushing their agenda. The city is the same way. It just won't drop it. It knows it knows that the people are opposed to this project, but they keep pushing through. Second thing, I believe the committee may have been a little too dismissive last time about signage at the Esser-Herf River Road intersection. We're not talking about 20 or 30 or 40 signs. We're just talking about a handful of signs. And the city could make this happen if they wanted to. The city could also rename Herf Road as Herf Bypass, but they refuse to do it. They're playing their usual games. And I don't expect them to support, this committee supports the Esser-Herf River Road project. But I don't see the city supporting it. They're going to play their games again. And they're going to probably keep funding stuff on Cascade Caverns Road instead, when the Esser-Herf thing is a much better solution, I believe. Anyway, thank you very much.
Any other members of the public like to make any comments? Okay, if not, we will move on into, we'll return to our committee-sourced projects. You want to pull those up, Northern?
That looks like a younger Ben. He needs to change his picture.
Many years
They
ago.
can hear you, Bob.
Yeah, looks like a high school.
Ben, is that your high school graduation photo?
And that's like pre-COVID or something, you know? COVID aged me.
Do any members of the committee need a package of those projects?
Starts with 15. Is that the one we left? We left that?
Could I see it just
Or was
to-
it 24?
I may not need to keep it.
That's all I have.
24. Page 24?
Is there any way we could turn
There
some
it
of
is,
our
24.
screens back on?
Yes, 24. Okay.
Was this in the original packet?
No, these are,
These are additional.
these are committee source. These
Okay.
came from the committee, which is a combination of your subcommittee and others, just suggestions off and on from committee members.
Okay, thank you.
And as Bobby pointed out, we're starting about fifth from the back
24, I believe.
with project number 24. That's correct. And as we did with the crowdsourced projects, what we're doing is looking at this not to select them for final selection, but to select them for future consideration, whether they go into long or short term, or whether they're subsequently sieved out. So this is Fry Street. Basically, this is the extension of Fry Street. John, do you want to explain this one? I think this came from you.
Yeah, this was, Fry Street dead ends just south of the creek. And this would be part of this overall presentation I made to y'all about a north-south, basically a high water route that we don't have. And this would be the connection between the end of Fry Street to State Highway 46 or River Road. And it would be a new bridge over Cibolo Creek. Now, the other thing I was showing you a while ago, I've been doing a lot of thinking on different ways that we can do this and still be pretty cost effective. One of the proposals that I'm going to make that's new is that at Herf Road and Esser Road and 46, take and realign the road through there, pull it up close to the Longhorn restaurant there. And what you're doing is you're putting it on high ground and you're out of the floodwaters. So what you'll be doing is going from just east of Longhorn across Esser Road and then back down to River Road. And what that would do is that would give you a continuous 46 or River Road passage all the way to Main Street, unflooded. Then if you were to have this Fry Street crossing of the Cibolo Creek, then even when it's flooded on Herf Road, you still have a way to go north and south. So to me, if we were to get this done as a, do it in multiple steps, but this would be one project, one step. And once it would be in place, you are now have a north-south connection that is unflooded. And it would be, well, it would be useful for just the general public, but it also would be very useful in emergencies like flooding.
So can I ask some questions, John?
Yeah.
The proposal or the project that's shown here is actually just the green part of, that's shown on the map here?
Yes,
So-
and what I was trying to do, we've talked a lot about using existing infrastructure. Well, this is what it would do. You'd use the roads that are already there, and this is just a little gap section that you need to fill in, and you wouldn't have to redo everything else. Not a lot of new stuff.
So is there additional right-of-way required north or south of the creek?
It would be some right-of-way on the creek, which is not developable anyhow. It's all in the floodplain.
Currently the south, been for a while.
Oh, that was Ms. Deaver? Or who was that?
Wanda.
Wanda, okay. Okay.
May I ask a question of you, Jeff? As I recall, the big flood did put the water pretty close to the barrier there at Longhorn. Does it actually clear the floodplain?
The building itself is a foot or two above the 100-year floodplain.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Would you have to elevate the grade of that?
So there's that kind of rock,
Mhm.
we call them butter sticks, but the rock wall that's there, in my mind, what John is saying is that would get pushed out and that road would get built up at the kind of parking lot, the gas station level
Uh-huh.
at that height. And so then the wall would get pushed over, kind of pulling the road over and elevating it up.
So, I mean, with your knowledge of the floodplain issues that we have around town, is that a viable option, do you think?
It would get I don't know if it'd get it all the way out of the floodplain, but it'd be a lot better than it is today.
Okay.
Well, and the same thing there, you would not have to do all the flood work that they were talking about was raising
Exactly.
all that up 8 or 9 feet.
So you're mitigating that intersection during flood events without shutting that whole intersection down to reconstruct it, as we've talked about, which is the burden.
John has a layout of this. I don't know if he's got enough copies, but we really haven't.
Dozen copies if you want to look at it.
What I'd like to do is bring that one back as a committee source project
And what
on
it
the
would
same
do
format.
is, that means that you would leave Herf Road like it is now, down flooded, in the flood. But if you had the Fry Street, you got an emergency out, so that this would let 46 or River Road go all the way through unflooded to Main Street. And then if you had this Fry Street connection in there, you now have the ability to go north and south over the Cibolo Creek. And what this would do is you'd have the ability to do all that, and it would be a whole lot less costly than I think what they're proposing now.
Okay, any other questions about this project here, which is the Fry Street extension across the Cibolo?
I have one. John, is this the kind of emergency connector that would just be open during flood events and then close back down?
No, you wouldn't close it down. It would just, Fry Street would, okay. I know that Lance doesn't want you to talk about Fredericksburg Road, but it would tie Fredericksburg Road to Cascade Caverns, to Old San Antonio Road, to Fry Street, and then it would cross River Road. And then there's another little segment that, following the channel there, up to the corner of Tyson and Plant Street. And then from then on, it's all out of the floodplain.
Well, the reason I ask is, I walk that neighborhood quite a bit, and Fry Street is very residential. And I think as a matter of normal course, people would just as soon it not be a new highway. But I certainly could see the value during flood events to open it up and have it be a kind of an escape hatch sort of thing, and then probably shut it back down. I'm just thinking out loud.
Does it have to actually go across and onto the residential portion, or can it be?
It is residential, Fry Street.
But I mean, can it be a bridge over 46 that curves and goes east-west on 46 and doesn't actually go?
That's a separate project. It's a different project that would complement this.
Okay.
We'll bring that back
Mike.
on this one.
Commissioner Mayor, my concern would be one residential, and I've spoken against some of the shortcuts through residential areas. I think there was some up further north, some on the northwest, west of school. But with this one, not only do we have the residential, I would want to hear from either the city or somebody that would look at the circulation change it would cause on River. I think where's your new intersection going to be then? Would it be right at the drainage system? Would it be somewhere where it just move all your traffic from one road to another road? I don't know. I couldn't answer that question, Mr. Kite, and that I just have it as a concern.
Yeah, I don't foresee it to be a major thoroughfare. In other words, it's there now and people use it, and I think it would be the same. I can't see it turning into a major deal because it's residential.
But I would rather spend the money on the structure. It would be an expensive structure. crossing the creek. I'd rather spend that money on HERF getting that sucker up. It's just, and that way you don't have that drainage problem. That would be my priority, but I'm just one vote.
Any other questions, comments? Jeff, you look like you wanted to say something? No? Did you?
So, I mean, the thought that crosses mine, and this is the first I saw John's exhibit when I sat down, but the thought that crosses my mind, even with this bridge that crosses, is we have a pinch point that there's only one way to cross to go from 46 East to HERF or any other ways that we can create an alternative route, no matter how that is,
To head south.
that it allows traffic to find its way. It goes back to the whole, if we had a grid, people would find their route and they wouldn't get stuck at one particular intersection.
Where this extension across the creek would hit 46, just north of there, is there a street that it follows, or?
No, just north of there, and if you'll,
Okay.
maybe on the next.
Okay, don't go chase that rabbit quite yet, but it doesn't tie on to where the street.
No, it doesn't tie onto a street.
Okay,
It ties
so
onto
it
a
would be
drainage
possible,
ditch.
it would be
They would have
possible
to-
just to cross the creek and tie on to River Road, and then have traffic go both ways.
That's why.
That's another possibility.
That's what I'm saying. You do it in stages.
Okay.
That would be the first stage. But then the next stage, if you wanted to continue, a north-south connector, that's a channel there. You follow the channel up to the corner of Tyson and Plant, and then go on out Plant.
I'm kind of in favor of, getting across the river or the creek. The other part, I'm not quite sure about yet, because I'd like to see kind of how that plays out with the
Well,
people in
that
there.
can be done in stages. They
Right.
may decide they don't want to do that.
I know we haven't talked about it, but just looking at the screen right now, if we were to take Fry and connect it to River Road, even don't go further there, but then if we were to take Hickman and take that over to HERF, in a way, we're creating a little,
That grid.
a grid there that would allow people, it would also, in a way, if Hickman went all the way through from Maine to HERF, it would take some of the traffic off of Oak Park, because Oak Park, we get complaints that a lot of people are using Oak Park as a cutoff through. But again, as you create more and more in the grid, you can spread the traffic through different alternative routes.
Is that part of the list of recommendations here? I know we
I don't
talked
think-
about it at the committee,
I was just looking at it on the screen right now.
because that pushes several options, one down HERF, the other over to South Main, which gives you two exits off to I-10, one on HERF Road and then one on South Main. So that gives you pretty much 3 exit points from one location.
Yeah, well, this could be done in stages. If you wanted to do the first one, which is maintaining River Road as high level all the way through to Main Street, well, once they're to Main Street, they can go wherever they want. Now, in the meantime, if you wanted to do this Fry Street tie to River Road, that's another option. But these are things you could do in steps, and each step relieves traffic problems.
Okay, well, this is a recommendation from a committee member, so I'm going to take it as a recommendation that it be included. Is an objection to including this for further consideration? Okay, it's in. Okay, the next one. Now, this one says Fry Street across River Road.
So that's talking about what he was talking about with the drainage area, continuing on.
This would be like phase 2 of the last one.
I think so.
Okay.
This is what that little green thing was on the page before this.
Okay, well, we're going to combine that with the previous one as a stage
Yeah,
one.
24 and 25 are basically the same thing.
Okay,
25 actually calls for a new connection that would go north along the creek
Well, but,
to the intersection of Tyson and Plant.
Correct.
right.
yeah, but what we're saying now is we're gonna stop at River Road, I think.
So not including 25? Is that what you're saying?
I think 25 is it's going to be mentioned as a phase 2, possible phase 2 of 24.
Yeah.
I think for 25, personally, I would rather see that remain pedestrian. So that's a creek, a wet weather creek. I don't know that adding another road there.
We could have another 5 points.
With another one, we need a roundabout.
I'm facetious.
Well,
Said that.
the top part of 25 is part of 26. 26 is a continuation from River Road, I think, up.
But that is not a road.
No,
26 is Lattimore.
That's a totally different deal. No,
Yeah.
no. 25, it's just a part of 24.
So, Northern, you object to 25 being included? Are there other objections to 25 being included?
I'm more of a drainage guy than a roadway guy, so.
24
I'd be
and 25 are
inclined
basically
to
the same
put it
thing.
at long term. And I'd say it goes back into the city, and the city citizens as well.
Okay.
Just crossing, that would cost 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 private properties.
I think what Betsy's talking about is on 25, just end it at River Road. Aren't you?
That's what I'm
So
considering,
that would be 24.
and that would be 24.
Minus 25. And leave 25 as a drainage project
Well,
or possibly a
20
pedestrian project.
24 actually went from River Road to Plant Street.
Right.
So what we're talking about is, we're talking about going from Fry Street to River Road, and
Right.
that's the end of this one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? We will move it from a two-phase project to a single phase, just basically Fry to River.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, no two-phase.
And then 25 we'd eliminate.
Okay, let's go with now 25. And are we gonna, there's one objection to that, one serious reservation.
He said eliminate.
Just eliminate.
Eliminate it, okay, if the,
Because on 24, what you said, you're just going from Fry to River Road.
very good, it's gone.
Okay.
Okay, 26.
Well, what that is, and it's been talked about a number of times, but that goes from Sisterdale Road and Main Street on down and ties into Johns Road at Lattimore. And, I mean, this has been proposed several times.
Okay, this is on the major thoroughfare?
Correct.
And so I think we have a group of projects that are on the major thoroughfare that we're going to address. It says, we think it's a good idea, but only to the extent that it's accomplished through development of those projects rather than through condemnation or some sort of initiative on the part of the city. So I would ask, does this project from from Highway 87 or Main Street down to Johns Road, does that fit in that category?
Here's the thoroughfare plan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the yellow.
The yellow just is existing roads.
That's
The yellow is existing road,
1376.
Sisterdale Road.
Okay.
And then the little yellow is Johns Road from where this ties into 10.
I think this is worthy of consideration in the sense that it takes some of the burden off of North
I
Main.
don't think that's ever going to be developed.
It was, if I recall, it was also a trail location, so I think putting them together would at least, it's worth the study. You can at least get a trail out of it that's not as vehicular. But I do know this was
Does it cross a creek?
it crosses the creek behind the baseball stadium by Northwood.
Okay. Any objection to continuing to include this as part of the major thoroughfare plan? Hearing none, we're going to move on. Okay. Now, Mr. Kyle, I want you to take a deep breath.
Lance?
This project here involves the extension of a road known as, I think, is it Copper Creek? Extends it on down through that development to its southern limit, and then it comes across, doesn't cross the creek, but runs on the northeast side of the creek and crosses the creek somewhere in the Pfeiffer property and comes back around and connects to Cascade Caverns Road. That's the green line that you see on the map.
Yeah, and that's basically your major thoroughfare plan.
I can say outright that I'm firmly against this idea.
Okay, there's an objection. So, and in your mind, there's no.
So the conversation has been very deep about the sensitivity of this area with respect to the recharge of our aquifer. And considering that we're in now a drought of record, at least equivalent to the drought of record, there's been an argument among those of us who are very concerned about putting roads in this area. The argument being that at least we could manage some part of what happens to this area. But we've also heard from the Pfeiffer family that they're not in any way, shape, or form interested in having this kind of development in the middle of their property. And I think what we've heard is very heavily weighed against putting any kind of development and or roads in this area. Significant concerns about our ability to mitigate any kind of a disaster, in the sense that the disaster is an immediate impact on the aquifer. It's a 30-second impact. We don't have a chance to respond to any kind of spill. And yes, I'm told that the engineers with TechStart are brilliant, and I believe it to some degree, but I don't think all engineering is brilliant. I think it's, it's fraught with disasters and contractors that aren't brilliant. So I'm just saying,
Y'all, this is Jonah calling in from Zoom land. Can you hear me?
Yep.
We got you, Jonah.
Thank you, Jonah, for showing up.
I'm sorry, I've barely been able to be here at all today, and I'm just going to be here for a few more minutes. But I have a couple of thoughts on this one, and I think we've discussed this before. But to me, if we had the ability to protect this land in some way, I would have a different opinion about it. The only thing here is if the land is developed and is covered up with houses and roads all over it at some point, I think it would be a shame that a connector is not built in this area. Now, I agree with Bitsy, this land should not be developed, and the family doesn't want it to be developed. And so those are just my thoughts that, to me, as long as the Thoroughfare plan process doesn't get their fingers involved in the property decisions until or if the landowner decides to sell, then it should stay on the Thoroughfare plan, and it would just only ever be connected if that whole property becomes wall-to-wall houses and roads anyway. But I totally agree. I wish we had some mechanism to say that this area should be very low density or should be protected in some way. I just don't know or it doesn't seem we have that.
Thank you, Jonah. Bobby?
Jonah, this is Bobby, and I agree with part of what both of y'all say. I'm just taking it a little further and saying this committee has already approved of projects in the same situation where we have said until it develops, okay? We don't control development. We don't stop it. We don't start it in this committee, okay? So I would much rather be ahead of the ball game, that if development does happen, if a sale of the land does happen, if development does happen, we're probably not going to be here. I don't know. It could be 50 years. But let's make sure we do it right and make sure we don't find ourselves in a corner without the right infrastructure in place. I say that for transportation. I say that for water. I say that for sewer. I say that for storm water. We need to plan for the future, and we need to support a project similar to this one, and they're similar to many others that where people have not wanted to sell. We understand that, but we're planning for the future. Future may be 50 years and maybe 100 years.
I'm going to say your logic is there, Bobby. This is such a different sensitive area that I think we're talking about a different animal altogether. And we already know from Mr. Kyle's testimony throughout this whole couple of years that running this road into the back end of the Cascade Caverns runs right all over an area that is, one, not only a recharge, but it's a monumental floodwater area because of its capacity to recharge. So I think this alignment is the issue. Your logic is sound. We've done alignments in contentious areas, but this area is unique, and I think this alignment is problematic.
I have seen the alignment is the concept is what we're approving. I think on other projects, it is a concept. It is not an actual alignment. I don't know if it's going to go downstream or upstream of Cascade Caverns. I don't know what kind of appurtenances they'll have to lessen or to cause zero impact. I have seen structures that cause zero impact because of the appurtenances they have from jellyfish, jellyfish inlets, all kinds of stuff. However, yes, it is a very sensitive area. I think our policy statement communicates that. I think our policy statement says try not to, but in the event that it has to, because we're not going to be here to protect it, we want this done. That's what the policy statement does. I think we're covered with our policy statement and what we say in that language.
So I
was going to echo the same thing. We don't really know exactly the alignment we're talking about. All we're saying is that this needs to be a connection there.
Okay, so here we're getting back into the same old argument, and I've asked and demanded basically that we prove the need to have a connector here off of 46. And we still haven't seen numbers. We still don't know what problem we're solving to. We don't know if it's a champion problem. We don't know if it's travel across the county. And we're trying to say that we have some urgent need to move traffic out of 46 there, but we don't know what that need really is. So I just think putting this line in particular is silly at this point in time. Define the need.
Okay, Betsy, I want to, excuse me just a minute. I want to clarify one thing. I want to refute a little bit of what you said. I appreciate your sensitivity to this area because I have the same sentiment, but I do believe that the need has been demonstrated. We've shown that the intersection at Herf and River Road is stressed right now. It's overloaded. The level of service is beyond acceptable. We've shown that 3351 at Interstate 10 is already stressed and really we can't do much more. So we've tacitly admitted or acknowledged that unless we have another connection somewhere in there, that those will get worse. So if we are going to follow our plan to mitigate current and future traffic congestion, the numbers do warrant a third connection. The question, in my mind, is not where the traffic comes from or which one, get the numbers down to exact science, but we have too much traffic on 46 wanting to get to I-10. Somehow we have to find another way or acknowledge that we're going to live with the delay. That's what I see. And so I don't think you and Bobby are going to convince each other. I think you'll live with the delay.
Yeah.
Bobby says we need to move forward.
Would it be possible to add an additional qualifier? Again, my thought is only in the case where this land is too sensitive to warrant, and the need right now is not strong enough to warrant building a road today, and doing it in some sort of more expedited timeline. But again, if the property is being developed anyway, and there's roads everywhere, it would just be a shame that we didn't, build a bridge and connect those two properties. And so would it be possible to just kind of put something in there that the committee feels strongly that given the sensitivity and that, this property should be protected if at all possible, but given the lack of tools to do so, if development becomes inevitable and it's happening, a connector should be required to be built by the developer. Is there some way to kind of thread the needle there?
Chair, if I can propose a motion that refers the roadway, the recommendation of the roadway to a certain policy statement number, I'd be happy to present that and say, I vote we move forward.
I'd like you to hold that for just a minute. I have like to hear from some of the other members of the committee.
Well, my concern is when you tie it to certain roads, I'm kind of Bitsy's park on this one. When you tie it to certain roads, we're pretty much specifying where we want it to go. I don't know, I'm not looking at the map right now, but I would think that downstream or somewhere else, there may be better locales. When you look at where some of the construction's going on the Dietz Elkhorn side of things, it might tie farther downstream that gets us out of some of that sensitive area. Growing up in that sensitive part of the county, yes, there's plenty of holes in the ground over there. And downstream, you might not find as many or somewhere else. But when we tie to a specific road, like the proposal says, it pretty much puts us to that general area in my mind.
Can I ask a question?
Yes,
Just for clarification, what's depicted on this, somebody said earlier, I think, that's already depicted on the major thoroughfare plan. Is that true?
It is, yes.
It's been there since the 70s, I believe.
My problem with all this is, and we've got it in the stuff that Bobby worked up on our policies, it says in there that if you have this karst-type topography, that we're going to do everything possible to protect around it. This has been on the major thoroughfare plan for years. We've danced around this thing for 20 years or more, and as we're dancing, everything is closing in. And what winds up is there's just a few open areas, which, realistically, that's where you're going to go. You're not going to go to a subdivision. So we need to figure out what we're going to do. And, right now, as far as I'm concerned, we need to just support the major thoroughfare plan, not specifically saying exactly where it goes, but it's going to have to be somewhere in that area, and in all likelihood, it's going to be in open areas.
As we did last meeting.
Northern?
I just have a comment here. This is, we're here, we're talking about this. In a few years, no one is going to remember exactly what we discussed here, but they will see a line on a map.
Correct.
And by leaving this line on the map, I am concerned that we do not afford the city of Bernie the opportunity to find a better route as subdivisions will happen, because they will always point to this line and this route, regardless of the fact that we here in this committee heard the daughter of the Pfeiffers, the younger generation, say, this is my land, I want to remain working on this land. So to me, that says this land is not going to build anytime soon. And we need to afford the city of Bernie and the county and whoever an opportunity to look elsewhere, not here.
Bob?
Northern, I couldn't agree more. This topic goes to the crux of the entire interaction we've been having for 2.5 years. And the concern of the public about roads that are built greenfield and through people's family estates, whatnot. Sadly, we are in a conundrum. The conundrum has been danced around and alluded to, but let's just be honest. Our state and our property rights laws around what people can do with their property mean that those tools don't exist to stop it. And I think everybody in this room wishes we could stop it. And until we elect people that give us more tools in a toolbox to regulate things in the county and to do more density development and to tie growth to water resource availability, on and on and on. All this environmental sensitivity that we all have, we can talk about it and wish for it. We do not have the leadership in the state to enact it. And it leaves us in a no-win situation where all we're doing up here is making bad decisions, the least bad of a bunch of bad decisions. We do nothing because we don't want to see it. First off, I want to be real clear. We got to remove the line. This committee has said over and over and over, we're not drawing lines on maps and recommendations that have where the landowners have not been contacted. So before we've talked about saying if the recommendation would be to connect point A to point B, we just leave the line off and say that somewhere in the ether in between there, a connection needs to happen someday, somehow. I think the line needs to be removed immediately and forever. But there's just no easy resolution to this discussion. People want to do what they want to do with their property, and yet the rest of the people suffer for it. And we just haven't solved that riddle as a community, as a state.
Rankin, Gary, have any thoughts? Marcus?
Well, I'm not sure that we haven't addressed it. I understand what Bob was saying and Northern allude to about having a line drawn that fixes in people's mind. I'm not sure we can manage from the grave what may happen 30 years from now or 40 years from now. But I do think that we've made a good faith effort to write it out in our policies that it is a right of the property owner to make that decision, and whether they own the property and they want to develop it, or they want to sell the property and to a developer that's going to develop it. I'm not sure that we're changing the course of the future by writing some policy that says you can't do it.
Ben, I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, so, the owners of this property, I view as potentially interested in conserving the land in the long run. I think their preference would be not to put a conservation easement on it, but given, their options, there's a chance they might put it into conservation. And I can't say for sure they'll do that. I don't know that. But it's just a sense I'm getting. And I do find myself thinking about, Jonah's trying to thread the needle, and he's saying, well, you have the line there just in case. But I go, well, if they put it into a conservation, there's two things. One is I don't want it to be growth inducing. Oh yeah, there's a line here, guys. Every speculator in the world jump on this, try to get it. This is where you want your big buildings going in. Second tier of that would be also, this guy wants, the family wants to put it into conservation. Well, if they put it into conservation, then it seems like any line going through it should be null and void. And so if there was going to try to be a compromise solution that threads that needle, then I would argue that would be worthy of consideration. That, hey, if they say they don't want it and they're going to conserve that land because they love it, and then that's as legitimate a claim to a use of land as putting houses on it. And I think that deserves respect. But that said, I do hear very loud and clear what Bob Manning is saying, Chairman Manning, that, we don't have any tools to mitigate all the risks. And so here we are in this situation as a Transportation Planning Committee, also trying to solve for the other issues that the state is not providing us the tools to solve for. And I don't see that as illegitimate, given the little bit of local authority we have or ability to influence outcomes. So this seems like an appropriate venue to exercise that opportunity and try to at least lean toward outcomes that are more desirable to our community and to our desired future. There you go.
Thank you, Ben.
So, folks, Folks, I have to sign off in just a second for a 3:00 meeting, but I just wanted to say, if there's some way that we can put into a statement, or I'm open to there not needing to be a specific line drawn on a map or a specific corridor selected, but I'm quite opposed to, or I think it would just be a huge opportunity loss if all that property just goes up in development at some point. And we've all seen properties that seem like nothing's ever going to happen, and then somebody changes their mind and things happen. And so, to me, if there's some way to just say, if there's some way to thread that meat needle, I'd be really supportive of it. Yeah.
This is what I'd like to propose. John, as John mentioned, I think it was John, we've been dancing around this for 2.5 years. I would add to that there's been a lot of toes stepped on during all that dancing. And so what we might want to do is to not ignore this by just not including it. I think that the sensitivity of the conundrum warrants a special section in the report, that we don't draw lines on the map. We may draw multiple lines on the map, but they're not in the context of a recommended project. It's that this is a sensitive area. There are different ways to connect down to I-10. These are the things that work against that. And leave it to the policymakers and give our recommendation to the city and the county that this is a terrible issue. There's a lot of other transportation needs in the county, and you cannot hold the whole county transportation system hostage while you try to solve this problem. Mm-hmm. And so I think that, if anything, if nothing else, will help us move the transportation system in Kendall County forward. Yeah. We recognize the problem. We say it's a difficult problem to solve, and we don't envy them solving that. We don't have a solution right now, but you got to move on with other things. Is anybody have serious objections to that? Subject, of course, to your review of the narrative.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have a serious objection to it, but I understand last meeting we were not supporting a project. We were just saying we agree to support whatever the Thoroughfare plan decided. That was some projects that were kind of in between. Why can't we do that for this one?
I think because there are special circumstances here related to environmental sensitivity and the fact that we had the owners of the property say we don't want this.
Then I have no objection then to your proposal.
And we also have a current owner.
Yeah, I support that, Don. Thank you for again coming up with a solution and
it's a non-solution.
Yeah, it's a non-solution, but I think it's more. I actually think it's more than that. And I would agree that this is slightly different than the other the other ones, because this is one that we actually don't necessarily agree with the Thoroughfare plan. Right? We're saying, hey, okay, this is in the Thoroughfare plan, but there's special considerations here that. Okay, I have to sign off for my meeting now. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, John.
Before essentially voting to advance this, I do wonder if we could look at what that language might actually look like, and then so in other words, it can move on to a next round, if you will. But I'd like to really be clear on what the caveat is.
I didn't think we were going to move it on as a project.
No, we're not moving it on as a project, Ben.
Oh, I like that.
We're going to make it a special narrative or section in the report that just basically describes the dilemma or the conundrum here.
And I have some wording for that, maybe solving the conundrum that I can propose later if you want.
I think it would be worthy to consider Stephen's observations about, and also Rich Senna and the school board demographic reports, observations about the growth that's projected is much more heavy on the south side, and that maybe that connection to 10 would be more beneficial if it drops a little bit further south rather than dropping right into Cascade Caverns Road area.
Yeah, I'd also like to add, Mr. Chairman, I think your idea is very well thought out, and it also underscores our policies and the concerns that have been expressed by the community over and over again. And, you know, I understand it's on the major thoroughfare plan. That's why I highlighted it earlier. It's been there for a while, and it's been a problem that hasn't been solved. And by taking it off and highlighting it in a separate section as you recommend, really sends a signal that this is different. This is a sensitive area, and we need to focus on it. And it doesn't get caught up with other projects in a list. It's addressed as it should be, and we don't perpetuate where we are today. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well said.
I'm good with that.
Okay, we'll move on to Project 28, which is the last of the committee source projects, except for the one that John's going to be bringing back.
Except which one I'm bringing back?
John, you want to describe this one?
Well, this one, again, is Major Thoroughfare plan, has been there for years. And it is what ties together, well, let's see, this is new connection east and west. All right. This one gets complicated. What it is, it
yes or no right now.
basically is part of the loop around Vernon, Lance. It picks up and goes up through Esperanza up on their east side, goes along their north side. That's already on the Thoroughfare plan, the green. And then the yellow is a little piece in between there, a gap section that ties into Spring Creek Road, I think it is. And then it goes down 474 and then ties into Main Street. But it's just another way to distribute traffic where you don't concentrate it on the 46.
No, you're looking at 28?
28.
Okay, if I'm not mistaken, it starts on the west end at 1376, correct?
Okay, if you want, I started on the east end, go ahead.
Okay, but it goes from there and it goes in a new alignment, a greenfield location, all the way to 474?
Correct.
Okay, at 474 is where it picks up. Is that Spring Creek there?
Yeah, that's Spring Creek.
And it follows Spring Creek, which is the yellow line?
Yes.
And then from there, it goes cross-country in a greenfield location, back turning south to River Road.
The part that goes from the yellow end of Spring Creek Road down to the top of Esperanza, that is a gap section. The rest of it is on the major thoroughfare.
Okay, but is there an existing road there? There's no existing roadway there. It's just on the major thoroughfare.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's, if I'm not mistaken, that was one of the Kendall Gateway alignments, more or less.
Well, it's
It
major
is.
thoroughfare alignment. It probably was.
It was.
Part of the gateway.
It was.
Yeah.
There's several, I mean, and I'm a Spring Creek address, so I'll speak to it and I'll withdraw my vote if I need to, but the green line that extends off of Spring Creek Roads goes right across to Malakoff, which has a National Historic designation. It's the highest point in Kendall County. It's part of the HERF property also. Yeah, and it's,
Well, the Malakoff is to the north of 474, so it's not involved here.
it is, John. You can't go across 474 and get to 1376 without running right into Malakoff. The gate's right across the street from Spring Creek Road. Straight across the street.
It's across the street, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyhow, again, that's mostly major thoroughfare.
Okay, we've got one objection. Other objections?
Didn't we have the landowner in here saying they didn't want that alignment going through
Yes,
their
they
property?
did. That was Bill Kinnon. Uh-huh. And then, of course, his cousins, the Droughts, are right on the other side of 474, on the north side of Mentwood, and they were in here saying no thanks either. So
That's a totally different project. This is way up north. What you're talking about now ties into Adler Road.
okay, so we have the
Spring
Right.
Creek Road, yeah.
the Kennons and the Droughts, they're cousins, and they're part of the Herf family,
Yeah.
and they're part of Jonah's family. And all of that property is Herf Ranch property.
Yeah, but it's broken up into a whole.
It is broken up, John.
Mm-mm,
It
see.
is. But we've already heard from
Adler's
Bill
right here.
Kennon, the landowner, that green line goes
This is
through.
way up north. This is all Greenfield Village here.
It's a totally different location.
474 comes up. 474 comes up.
What you're talking about goes from Adler Road to Esperanza.
That's, you're not understanding what I'm saying.
But you-
We've already heard from those people. We're not talking about that project. We're talking about this project, number 28. The green line that goes to the west of the yellow line goes right through
Maybe
Kennon property,
there.
and that's the Malakoff. And then the back end of that is Grossman. So I'm not really sure what the disposition of taking on the Grossmans is. But
Regardless, it's the same situation as the last one we just spoke about.
exactly.
And instead of the karst, it's historic. They're historic features.
And
And-
conservation.
And concert, well,
Well, the Malakoff is National Historic.
Well, not only that, is I don't see this alignment off of Sisterdale solving any problem, because traffic is not heavy on Sisterdale, so that wouldn't be a relief road for it.
What problem we solving?
The traffic is not going north. We have seen that.
Yeah, well, main thing I was doing, just showing this is what Major Thoroughfare plan. And do we
Okay.
want to support it or not?
All right.
Did you say it's on the plan, John?
It is on the major thoroughfare
it's
plan.
the northeast quadrant of the third.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That same other section. An awful read about terrible idea. So put it the same way, which is 27.
Well, I don't think this, in my opinion, this doesn't rise to the level in terms of objections that the one down through the Pfeiffer property does. I just haven't heard nearly as much about it, but
It
But
doesn't
what's-
rise to the same level. It's just,
But is it 1 or is it 10? Is it 5? We have 1. I guess that's my issue with planning. Sometimes planning, you got to think ahead, and it's later. I already spoke. I'll say the same thing. It's just sometimes you got to plan ahead, and
okay.
problem is drawing it on a map. So if we're not going to draw it on the map, then
It's on the map already.
it's on the
I
map.
think what I'd like to do is just go ahead and vote up or down on this. We have 11 committee members here, present voting members, 3, 6, 9, 10. Ben's on the line. Are y'all willing to vote on this?
am I voting or no?
No, yeah.
I'm
So what are we
against.
going to vote on?
About whether we're going to carry this forward into further consideration.
Did we
Well-
vote on the last one? I think we just
You
kind of
know, if
agreed.
We had consensus.
what we're saying, if we vote on this and vote it down, you're saying that we're not planning ahead for the future.
Oh, dear.
We're letting things happen, and someday you may not be able to get across the north part of the county or the north part of the city. So I think the people that laid this out to start with, they had a vision of some kind of mobility corridors that are on the major thoroughfare plan. And if you take it off, you're saying, we have no plans, and what happens
Well,
happens.
just because we don't recommend it, doesn't mean it's coming off the major thoroughfare plan, right, Bryce?
Correct.
So it just means we don't think y'all don't think it's a good idea. So,
I think the problem with this and the problem that the committee has is that we're drawing a line.
We're drawing lines,
And so,
insinuating that's where it needs to be.
well, But the hard thing about it is we have to plan at the same time. So I know, because I get to look at these maps all the time for little connections within the city, and if we don't have that plan out there, then when we have a developer come to us, it is the conundrum. It is what we're in right now. And I wish we could say, if this section happens, then we need this size road there if you're going to pay those bills. But we would love to have it just be natural and not developed at all. That's what I would love to say to people. And the lines part of it is the toughest part of what we're doing.
Problem with transportation.
Straight up. Yeah. And we said as a committee a while back, we weren't going to do this line stuff. But then when we get into the thoroughfare plan, there have been lines there since when? Since 1974 is when they got drawn on the map for the first time. Some of them for that first thoroughfare plan. I think as a committee, we've been tasked with the alternate to lines. Am I right by saying that? Like, how as a committee can we say to the policymakers, don't do that.
Well,
For the better decision.
to be fair about it, the reason that this committee even actually exists is by
Because of
virtue
lines.
of the
Yes.
community saying, we're tired of you putting lines all over our neighborhoods.
Correct.
And especially those in the county who have no voice at the city. So
True.
and all of that's in the county.
But the whole problem exists that if you don't have these, you're not protecting the future mobility corridor. When the developers come in, they could develop all of this, but there's no coordinated effort to have a future mobility corridor.
Okay.
You've lost it.
I'm asking the question, is there an option without lines?
Right.
Is there
an
this
option?
region
Right.
happens, if God-forsaken KB comes in and does what they do, can we tell them we need a collector road, north, south, east, west?
Right.
Period.
That-
Not a line on the map.
We
That would
need to
be-
connect 1376 to 474 if it is developed, where it is developed, and
Leave it at that.
leave it at that, yeah.
But if you don't have some idea, you know.
I know, I understand the difficulty of it,
I
because
understand what
nobody
you're
does
saying.
this. Nobody does it. TxDOT doesn't do it, we don't do it, the city doesn't do it. We come up with ideas because we see the path. Why not be different? We've been different with everything else as a committee. Why don't we say, take this region, if somebody's going to develop it, to hell with you, you're going to develop it anyway, put a road through here, this is the size you need. We would rather you not develop it. We would rather encourage undevelopment.
I believe, and I'm not 100% sure, I wish Tim was here, but unless you have it on the major thoroughfare plan, I don't believe you have the authority.
With a line, is what you're saying.
Yeah, right.
But
That's exactly
this
what
is
I'm
county, so we don't have the authority anyway.
Is
right?
it in the ETJ?
No,
Jeff knows.
no, that's not the ETJ.
Portions of it are, but not all of it.
Is that the Esperanza portion, Jeff?
Yeah, they're, all the Esperanza's in the ETJ per the development agreement.
Yeah, but down at the end of Spring Creek Road,
Yeah, there's a little gap there. Looking at it, there's a little gap
because I
by
know,
Spring Creek Road. that's
yeah,
not in
we're
the-
not.
That's that little piece I talked about.
And we're a mile down Spring Creek Road. I think the ETJ runs right next along the Herf Ranch.
So I've done a little bit of research on this question that Bryce has asked. I've inherited the city's thoroughfare plan. I haven't found anyone in the state of Texas that is using anything besides a map. I found some entity in California that has, and I've seen other entities that have like tables and lists that basically just have lists of roads. But those that don't have a map, they basically tie it to a parcel number. So instead of putting a line on the map, now we're going to say KCAD parcel number, whatever, needs an east-west road. So all it is a line on a map on a piece of paper, not on a map.
And more definite.
Yeah, so
You're
it's
picking the parcel.
yeah, so it's basically a map that's a secret map. That it's the same thing. It's just not a
More
map.
obscure.
And that way, then it'd be a huge table of all KCAD parcels. That this KCAD parcel has a north-south road, and this KCAD parcel has an east-west road. And someone could go make a parcel map and draw the lines out, and it's a map. So it's not any different.
Probably worse. Well, I'm going to suggest that we vote on this.
This exact.
On the proposal, and understanding that if you carry it forward, we can carry it forward as a long-range project, we can carry it forward as a short-range project, or we can later vote to eliminate it. Those are your three options if we vote affirmative on this. So we have.
What's the numbers today? We've got, how many?
We've got
11 voting, or 10? 10.
There's 4 there.
4.
And 6 over here.
6.
And 1 on.
8, 9, 10, 11, counting Ben. We have 11, so what's it going to take to?
11, 75%.
So are we going to vote on, to keep this on the major thoroughfare plan or not, or what are we going to vote for?
3 options. Well, you said there's part of it not on the thoroughfare plan, correct?
Correct. There's a little bitty gap where,
A little piece from the end of Spring.
So that's really,
where existing Spring Creek Road kind of ties into Spring Creek Road, follows Spring Creek
we
Road,
need
and ties back off
9.
on the other side.
Well,
We're not actually voting to take it off the major thoroughfare.
No, we're voting not to include it in our recommendations at all, to be silent on it. So according to our rules of supermajority, with 11 members present, we need an affirmative vote of 9. The recommendation has been made to put it on or carry it forward as a project for subsequent consideration. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
I gotta get one.
let's clarify what you're saying,
As proposed.
what you're proposing. Clarify that.
Okay. Project number 28 has been proposed for further consideration. They've moved down one step in the process. And so if we agree with that recommendation that we consider moving this forward in the process, if you vote yes, that moves forward. If we vote no, that would eliminate it from subsequent consideration.
But that's strictly our recommendation.
That's right.
That doesn't mean the city's going to take it off the top.
That's correct.
And
We have no real authority. We're just.
And at any time, will we be given the opportunity to vote on the one prior to this in the same fashion?
Well, all of them will come back again, and
Oh, yeah.
we can say, sorry, that's just a bad idea. Or it's going to be long-term, or it's going to be short-term. So, any further questions?
To vote yes means we leave it alone.
We carry it forward.
Carry it forward.
Carry it forward. As a long term, not a short term.
We don't decide that yet.
We don't decide that yet.
No, the developers decide that.
No, as a committee, we're trying to decide whether it goes in our long-term bucket or our short-term bucket, or if we don't carry it forward
But we just carry this forward.
Right.
for the next.
Okay, all those in favor? Raise your hand. 1, 2. You don't vote.
I know.
2 in favor. All those opposed? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Ben, how do you vote?
His hand's up.
Oh, okay.
Okay, that one we do not carry forward. All right. And with that anticlimactic action, we have one project left, which is the River Road realignment. And can you get with John and bring that back at the next committee meeting? Okay. All right, thank you. Committee members should have in their package of information, something that says 12/7/21 draft, but the watermark says 6/17/22 draft. And if you go back to page 26, this is where the policy section that the policy committee has forwarded to us begins.
Page 26.
This is the most recent adaptation of the policy.
Do what?
Is this the most recent?
This is what's been presented to me as the most recent. Is that right, Bobby? That's what you sent to me the other day?
On Friday.
On Friday.
I sent to everybody on Friday before noon.
Do you send it to the entire committee?
Yes, sir. And what I sent had the red
Yeah.
wording, and you took the red wording out.
Well,
but you can't see it here anyway.
I didn't take it out.
That's fine.
It's just not
It's just the
red.
new stuff.
Yeah.
That very small. There were some comments that Mr. Kite and I think Jonah had. It doesn't change the content, but I think it was noteworthy, and I made those revisions. If I need to go through them, let me quickly pull out where they are, and I will refer to them quickly, if I can find it quickly. 1 second.
Don't take your time. Let's make sure we've been over this several times. I'm hoping we can get this moved along.
And just like that. Wait a second. I didn't get into my
Darren, in case you want to know, it's 5:00 a.m.
5-0. Top of the six?
Just
1 second, 1 second.
left faces loaded.
You said it's 5-0?
5-0.
Oh,
Aggies.
Is that a different vote?
Aggies, yeah.
And what inning is it?
Six?
Top of the six.
Come on, go on, go, 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 go,
What's it looking for? What's it looking for?
I don't know. I think he's trying to find his changes.
Trying to find the changes. I didn't VPN in, so I can't get to my files. Now I did.
I didn't make any changes on this page.
Northern, is it possible you can bring that up from our website or email?
The one I sent, yeah, that's a good idea, because it's not coming out. I'm looking for any red lined, oh, mine's red lined, okay. Mine's red lined, I can do that right now. Just to make sure there's no other, I think the changes to the document, if y'all could see, were pretty much just no content changes, just the structure. I attempted to pull out that policy statement that we're making that's asking the powers that be to develop a policy. We weren't developing policy here, of course. But if you look at the last, at the end of PS 2.1, which is the part of Section 2, Countywide Transportation System Planning and Development, at the end of 2.1, at the last part where it says improvements to lessen unacceptable traffic delays and congestion on roadways and intersections, and I added, while maintaining an acceptable level of service for the capital service, that is a technical term, for the roadway being evaluated. In other words, that says, let's at least make sure we don't dummy down the road to where we cause more congestion. The next change was to PS 2.4 about micromobility.
Let's see, I've got that.
PS 2.4, and you go down to the second
Paragraph.
second sentence, and I'm trying to, oh yeah. Micromobility solutions should be integrated into a broader network via the approved agency thoroughfare plans. That was a comment, I believe Mr. Kite meant, what network are we referring to? Is it Bernie? Is it Fair Oaks? We have our own approved network in our approved thoroughfare plan, so that is the wording. I also added on the same section on PS 2.4, the last paragraph of 2.4, the second sentence, I added parallel to the short and long-term needs of a roadway network. These need to be clearly indicated and legally designated so that these trails are independent of roadways, and that roadways are not substituted for the trails along these easements. Parallel, that was something that, Ben, we talked about, trying to tie them to roadways and not always keep them out there as separate trails, and they wouldn't get any attention. Was that you, Ben, that we talked about?
Yeah, that kind of came out of our committee. So there's a concern that a trail right of way might just be said, oh, why don't we just make that a road? Oh yeah, that kind of sort of cavalier, cars first, micromobility zero. So we're trying to mitigate that, first of all. And secondly, it's also to encourage the creation. I mean, if there's going to be thoroughfare planning or if we're going to be negotiating with developers to create these outcomes, to make sure that we are creating these sort of safe passageways that are not trying to, sort of treat the micromobility as secondhand to cars and just sort of tack them onto roads, where obviously that increases risk, but also even, frankly, diminishes sort of the quality of the experience of engaging in micromobility. It tends to basically, again, make it all about vehicles, and the micromobility is just an add-on. And we're trying to be very deliberate and create a trail network that encourages safety as well as the user experience that will encourage more use of micromobility, not discourage it.
Got it. Thank you. Any questions? If not, PS 2.10, 2.10, PS 2.10. That is the new policy statement. It changed quite a bit after comments from Mr. Kite. Councilman, I think you sent me comments, or Tim Banwolf, Deacon Dell sent me some comments. Mayor Manning, you also sent me some information from that.
Mayor.
Former mayor. Weren't you former mayor? Council, sorry. Okay, sorry.
Please.
Tell me you're a mayor. Or you were pretending to be the mayor. I'm kidding.
Never.
I'm kidding.
I was mayor first.
That's a joke. City, if y'all want to read through that, unless I have to read it, I did add quite a bit. I think it has the same content. There was a comment about Fort Worth. There was a comment of not leaving any cities. Well, in my opinion, that was something I added. Denton, Midland, McKinney, and Sugar Land, to show that not only a big city like Fort Worth does this, but there's other agencies similar to our issues. Were small at one time, and then POW, particularly McKinney, got hit with a lot of development, and they were able to establish a roundabout policy that works. So that's why I added those cities.
The only thing I would ask that you'd add, Bobby.
Yes, sir.
Is I think you need to put something in here about encouraging that cities and counties should also encourage TxDOT to incorporate or to consider roundabouts in the design of their roadways in Kendall County.
So would you like it in the purpose, or not in the actual policy statement?
I don't really care. I just don't want to. It's one thing for us to go do our stuff, but if we leave out one of our major participants, actually the one who does more construction than any of us put together, and they don't care about it, we're swimming upstream.
Do you mind if I give it a shot, or I'll give it a shot and call you to make sure?
Go ahead.
And Bobby, let me ask another somewhat related or unrelated. This roundabout thing seems very powerful, but yet it's 2.10. Can we reprioritize where this is in your list, or is there a reason behind it?
Yes, we could do whatever y'all want. The reason behind it is, you notice 2.9 is consistent right-of-way and roadway geometric standards. So this is actually saying, consider roundabouts as the roadway geometric, consider roadways and develop that roadway geometric standard for roundabouts. That's why I put it in that's last one. We can move it anywhere y'all care to.
My suggestion would be to move it to somewhere, at least in the top three.
Of Section 2?
Of Section 2, yes.
Then possibly, first one's infrastructure over construction, greenfield, which is pretty important, I would think, but.
How about 2.4?
Second, 2.3 is rural roads. 2.4 is micromobility. 2.5 is mobility solutions, socioeconomic background.
I mean, the reason I say it is that human nature says when you read a list of things, the implication is the most important ones come first.
That can be an issue. I mean,
And I think this committee in our discussions have put roundabouts pretty high up on the list of things we want people to at least be cognizant of and consider.
may I propose that we move 2.9 and 210 at the same time? I mean, that way we're moving, hey, everybody, develop the same geometric standards because we're neighbors. We gotta be reading off the same roadway Bible.
So you put 210 ahead of 2.9.
It's up to y'all. Never
I'm
mind.
good with moving
You know
both
what?
of those.
I'm going to write the executive summary, so
You can put it wherever you want.
So just looking at it, it seems like 2.9 and 10 might slip in pretty nicely after 2.3.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, yes.
And then I'm wondering if, I had a thought, just bear with me for a second.
Yes, ma'am.
The development of consistent right-of-way and roadway geometric standards seems to be consistent with 2.2 and 2.3. And I'm wondering where and why that's different and unique from 2.2 and 2.3. I mean, the city of Bernie has, and I'm assuming the city of Fair Oaks, has some pretty consistent roadway standards. And the county we're addressing in 2.2 and 2.3. Who are we addressing in 2.9?
And
All of them.
2.9 to anybody that enforces
Yeah.
roadway standards
So
and
they can play together.
specifications. Correct, so they play exactly. 2.2 is actually what I believe was an issue that we discussed at the very beginning, well, when we started back again about FM and not always going from FM to huge roadways, or to try to take those standard FM roadways and keep them rural, was it? Or maybe that's closer to 2.3?
Well, I think we had a lot of pushback about kind of the looseness of that language altogether. And I don't know that it's that much more clear, other than we said we need to identify the specific roads that we're talking about that need to be brought up to standards. So, and then I'm just kind of questioning if that isn't all covered under 2.9, just as a blanket.
I will say 2.2 and 3 were its own section. And if I separated any, it was 2.2 and 2.3 I pulled apart. 2.9 was its own complete different section.
Okay, but can anybody explain to me, since I'm not a policy language person, how they're different in light language?
They're similar.
Which
They
ones are
similar.
different? Which one's different from which is your question?
Yeah.
2.2,
Which one?
2.3, and 2.9 are
What's the
the same.
difference between 2.2 and 2.3, and why couldn't they be covered under 2.9? I guess is my specific
okay.
question.
Well, I think
The
that
fewer the better.
2.2 was trying to capture that we have a lot of county roads, they're existing right-of-way, and that the county would identify those roads, that not all county roads act as major traffic arterials. There's a bunch of them that don't. But if there are roads that do act as major arterials, for example, Waring Welfare or Old Number 9, that whenever we upgrade those roads, we would upgrade them not to become FM roads, but that we would use FM standards for geometric design. And that doesn't, when we upgrade them, that's what we would do.
So we had some pushback from Alex
Ms. Rudd had a concern that we were going to convert all county roads, and
That's not it.
that's not it. I mean, Kreuzberg, I don't believe qualifies. It's not a major county road.
Okay.
I mean, there's houses right next to the road.
Should we then do 2.9, for those that can't see up there, 2.9, talking about the road, roadway geometric standards. Let's make that 2.2, and then 2.2's next, and it talks about FM standards, and then it talks about upgrading rural roads and roundabouts, FM standards, and rural roads.
I think 2.9, Betsy, to continue my answer, is that was intended as an encouragement to get governments to cooperate. So if we had a collector and a county collector was the same as a city collector in terms of right-of-way width, number of lanes, lane widths, and things like that. Because right now they're not. I mean, the city
Hammond Road goes through.
Yeah.
3 counties.
And 2 cities.
So those were the differences between those two.
Maybe you could take 2.2, 3, and 9 and just meld them into one.
I was thinking of that, Mr. Kite.
You opened this Pandora's box. Didn't you?
Well, 2.2 and 3 were one, and the other one was separate. And so I could put them together, but I think we'd lose the translation of our importance of
Or maybe
FM
put
standards.
2.2 and 2.3 together.
That is my fault. If those are the same, I'll put them back together and I'll make up something else.
As long as your committee's okay with it, I'm okay with it.
I'm a one. Marcus helps me, everyone. Marcus helps me. It's like Marcus help. Read this.
I did have a suggestion. I don't know if it'd fall here or it could fall in the other section, but I know we talked about what's going to happen after the committee.
After what?
After the committee. And the question would be is, do we want to include an ordinance that kind of that continues to have everybody meet? Do we have that in here? Or would it fall in
that in
I think
It's actually not the committee, though. It is a,
page 40.
it is a pseudo-governmental, governmentally driven.
It's the last page.
Yes,
Transportation Advocacy Committee.
yes. It's a mini,
It was a test mark to see if you turned to the
it's a
last page.
Kenco, Kendall County. A Kenco, not a Samco.
And I guess the other part of it would be roping in Bear County, Comal County, Bandera County.
Say it again.
Can the other counties surrounding jurisdictions?
That's what transportation, that's what the last one's supposed to be saying.
Okay.
And that was brought up before. Wait a minute, why are we dealing with them? Not like to that sense, but we should be looking after our own best interests. Well, there's some that are more regional outside of Kendall County. So that I feel is in there, but we need to change that too. If it's not, if you can't take that from 5.1, let me know and I'd take any suggestions.
I want to hit the rewind button right here. What were those words that you gave us about?
Laser focus on completion.
There you go. That was it.
Laser focus.
Hey, Bobby,
Yes, sir.
on page 5, the top, which is part of 2.3, I think I commented on the third line down.
One second, Mr. Kite. 2.3?
Yeah, on page 5.
Oh.
Where you're talking about pursuing a strategy of upgrading county FM roads. You need to take FM out of there because that's a farm to market road and the county doesn't have any.
Just upgrading county roads, that's correct.
So,
Just upgrading
so
county.
2.3, just say
County roads.
county roads. The county roads in Kendall County exist in both, okay. So no reference to FM roads anywhere in that section? Is that what you're saying, Mr. Kite?
Well, no, you should take it out. The third line down, it says pursuing a strategy of upgrading county FM roads. It should just say upgrading county roads.
Oh, I see that. I'm looking one sentence higher. Pursuing a strategy of upgrading county roads where needed to ensure the function.
Yeah,
Okay,
leave
so-
out
okay.
FM.
Got it.
Regarding the transportation advocacy group, I'm wondering if maybe I'm getting too much in the weeds, but I think it's been very helpful to have BISD at the table for obvious reasons. And then I'd also like to still encourage also Cow Creek to be included and not treated as a sidecar.
This is actually page 5.
What was that?
Where did you want that included, Ben?
All in one document.
Well, for the transportation advocacy component, it could be easy to just default it to a city and county selection. And I think it's been helpful to have BISD in the room. And then obviously from a groundwater supply standpoint, Cow Creek would have an interest as well, I think, going forward in being able to nominate a person or people to that committee.
We never said.
What does he talk, which one's he talking
Okay,
about?
on the last one, he wants his agency added.
2.2 and 3.
And I'd want to make sure BISD is involved if they're not already
They're on here.
listed.
They're on there.
Okay, add our agency, please.
Aren't they? Aren't they local? One second.
Our jurisdiction covers the entirety of Kendall County, if that's what you're asking.
Yes.
So in 5.1, right after Barney ISD, we'll add Cow Creek.
I can do that.
There you go.
Any other agencies? Where did I put BIS? Oh, Cow Creek, comma, Maisie and Cow Creek.
So, Bobby, if I could get you to make those changes.
Yes, sir.
And then just for the record, send me the updated versions.
Yes. Yes, sir. But may I get clarification on those revisions? 2.2 and 2.3, we're going to mold together, put back together. This was also. Yeah. And then 2.9 and 2.10 are going to go where? Is it going to be the new 2.2 or new 2.3?
You know, wherever you want it.
It's going to go after those ones you melded
I
together.
would say
Got
nine
it.
goes after 2.2 and 3,
Winter, chicken dinner. Got it.
when you put them together.
There'll be 2.4 and 2.5, and then 2.6, 7, 8. Ready?
Okay.
Yes, sir, I can do that.
And after you send that to me, Bob Manning, who's agreed to draft our executive summary, and I and Northern will get together, and we're going to decide on what kind of format, whether we're going to go with Roman numerals or sections or whatever. We'll wipe out yours or wipe ours out, but we'll make them consistent from one part of the report to the other.
That is correct. Yes, no problem.
Okay. Thank you all for that work. Hopefully we'll get it out of here. Bob, you think we'll just defer the draft report review for right now?
I think it's.
Everybody's got their draft report. Take that home with you. There are major sections. I mean, most everything is in there. There's some exhibits that are missing, some tabular things. But I'm going to try to, Bob and I and Northern are going to get together next week and talk about how we get the sheets in here, the project sheets, and how we list those, whether we have a table of contents or what we do. But please review your project sheets if you have an assignment to, clarify what those projects are. If there was some other language, if you can remember back that far, please do that work and get it to Northern as soon as possible. And then next week, next meeting, we will get together and look at those and look at this policy statement and hopefully take another step or two closer to finishing the project.
Don, is the intention that you and Bob representing the committee will make presentations to each of the entities?
Yes.
We wrap up.
Along with, supported by the full committee member in the audience, so you can clap every time we hit a high point.
I think that's important that happens, but are we at some point to try to get on some agendas, because we're going through the budget process of all the entities, we're going through the summertime, so it's just a critical time that we try to reach out and get on different agendas.
I would like to do that. It's a good suggestion. It makes a lot of sense, except I have no idea when that date would be at this point. I think it's not quite soon enough for me to project when we're going to be done. All right, we've got a few minutes left, so we'll go to item number 8, public comment. Anybody in the audience like to comment? Ms. McCarthy, they're pointing at you.
Imagine. Wanda McCarthy, Ammon Road. Thank you for continuing to try to find some kind of common ground between the aggressive taking that was facing us by TxDOT, continues to face us by City of Bernie, in league with outside deep pocket interests, against those taxpayers, including myself, who just want to live here. We've made an investment here, and we call Kendall County our home. So thank you for continuing that battle. It's been a battle I've been part of for 17 years, and I appreciate what y'all have done. A couple of points and comments I wanted to make based on what y'all have said today. Thank you first and foremost to Bitsy for standing firm on the preservation of the whole southeast sector and for not rubber stamping the taking of land just because it's still open and hasn't been developed by high-density outside people, and preserving y'all's own water and the water of San Antonio by doing so, and preserving the land in a rural state for those of us that respect that and want to keep it that way. So thank you. I appreciate it. A few other comments. I did scream from the back that the property is for sale at the corner of Herf and River Road. If the city would just buckle up, or the city and the county can combine forces and buy that, a lot of options would be available for that intersection, not just these feeble ones that it keeps being thrown out. If you take the option that Mr. Kite brought, it eliminates a lot of other better options that are available. It also puts two intersections really, really close together on a state highway metrics, which is never going to be good. And it potentially eliminates the possibility of ever putting a roundabout in that location, which y'all have repeatedly said you would like to have. And it's discussing putting a bridge here and a bridge here, aligning two bridges that, bridge work to the most expensive. We would have one bridge paralleling another bridge less than a half a mile from each other. It just doesn't seem to make sense that you would want to spend money on bridge work, and he promoted bridge work all the way through the paths of Bernie where there's open space, and yet the bridge work that was discussed of doing a good bridge from out by Champion over around Herf Road over to I-10, which would last 40 years for transportation, was poo-pooed as being too expensive. Bridge work is bridge work. It's going to be expensive. Another comment, Mr. Durden's rebuttal to Bitsy about Herf being stressed and that something has to be done. Well, there's a lot of things that could be done that would cost the city, the county, hardly anything. Sign work, voted out. Expanding already owned right-of-way, not considered. There was some video discussion of how to expand lanes, but not to the extent that it needed to be done. There needs to be 2 turn lanes left going east on I-10 that was completely eliminated from the synchro models over and over again, even though it was requested. Absolutely nothing has been done there, and to complain that that is a terrible intersection, when I sit at I-10 and Huebner Road on a repeated basis, and TxDOT and City of San Antonio have no intention of fixing that. It's not true that people from outside the the outside in the county can't do anything. They can do anything with your property, as Mr. Manning said. They can't. They do that in coalition with a city. I got it. The city or someone supplementing them with utilities. So the concern that we can't do anything, they can do anything they want with their property is not true. The city has been supporting that high density to the detriment of people in the county. One other thing, the major thoroughfare plan that's in existence now, the entire east quadrant of this thoroughfare plan has been put into place by the city because of one high-density developer, the Lookout Group. That Thoroughfare plan that Mr. Kite keeps wanting to say is from the 70s was not there in the 70s. It was put there in 2005 when the Lookout Group, when Esperanza was first being discussed, and then now with the Lookout Group. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kyle?
Lance Kyle, 226 Cascade Caverns Road. Yeah, this meeting and the last meeting, we've seen the moral hazard presented by the Bernie Thoroughfare plan. It's set in stone. The city is inflexible about this plan. And I hate to reference another dictator from the last century, but this all reminds me of a guy in Germany back in the 1930s. He had a 1,000-year plan, just like the city of Bernie, and somehow that didn't last. That only lasted so long. My point there is we don't know what's going to happen in the next few years, especially with this drought. Is it going to be a 2-year drought? We've seen these 2-year droughts, but what if it's a 7-year drought? I mentioned also before population statistics. The replacement rate in Texas right now is 1.9 for couples, native couples. What's propping up this whole growth explosion are people in-migrating from other states. But think about this. What if Abbott doesn't get elected in November? What's going to happen then? Is everybody going to start going to Tennessee? It just takes a minor change in some of these variables and things are over. I also want to point out, one of the people on the dais earlier, John, said that this Copper Creek to Cascade Caverns Road connector is going to sidestep subdivisions. That's not accurate. It's going to go right through the ranches at Creekside and South Glen, and nobody living there knows that. Their realtors did not tell them that those roads are going to turn into 4-lane highways where cars are going to be crashing at 3 a.m. and awakening you out of your sound sleep. Also, dumping all this traffic, I don't think anybody's explored this dynamic. Dumping all of this traffic from 46 with such a connector road onto Cascade Caverns Road with the choke point created by Bernie Middle School South at Scenic Loop and Cascade Caverns Road, that's not going away with the roundabout that's going to be at Old San Antonio Road and Cascade. So you dump all this traffic on Cascade Caverns Road, that's going to be another nightmare. Then we're going to have to do an adjustment to an adjustment. Thank you very much.
Anyone else announce? Mr. Zinsmeister.
I promised my wife I wasn't going to say anything.
You're the only one that came appropriately dressed today. Well, no, maybe Mr. Manning.
I'm Maxie Zinsmeister. I'm from the poor side of Bergheim. But again, we failed to talk about mitigating traffic, okay? And I do appreciate a lot of things you said. Again, talking about all the traffic in the Herf Road, River Road area, talking now about, the traffic in the Cascade Caverns area. Okay, what is the common denominator there? Schools, okay? I'm going to go back to what I told you last time, okay? Put toll booths at every school, okay? Charge them a $10 toll, okay? Use that money to put in a fund so that this person, and I understand the person, it's right now, they're committing, they don't want their property to go up for sale, okay? But what's going to happen when that person dies? Are they really going to be able to pass that legacy on to their children? My problem exactly, okay? The taxes, okay? Right now, my taxes are going to be frozen at a very high rate. So this slush fund for these $10 tolls can be used to pay for taxes, keep taxes low, so that people can afford to keep their homes, okay? Again, the value of the property, the appraised value, whatever, is going to keep going up, up, and up. And I plan to live at least 25 years. So by the time I die, okay, what is the tax burden going to be on my son? He's not going to be able to afford that tax burden. On my $200,000 home, that Kendall County Appraisal District now thinks is $800,000, okay? My son's not going to be able to afford that, okay? Like a lot of ranchers in this area. We need to do something to mitigate that. Or this person, talking about conservatorship, okay? Again, give them incentive. Take some of this money out of this slush fund, and here's $1 million. Turn it into a conservatorship. Or use this money to buy that land. Let's make it a county park. Okay, so it is preserved. It's obviously good property in a very sensitive area. Let's purchase it if we can. Okay? Again, all the traffic on 3351. Put a toll booth down there, okay? If you live in Kendall County, you don't have to pay the taxes. But all these people coming in to build homes in Cordier, all that stuff, they can afford the $10 toll to come in. Let's use that money wisely, okay? Let's use it to relieve the tax burdens, and let's use it to buy people's properties that don't want to sell, okay? Because again, once the landowner dies, you're at the full mercy of what the kids can do to keep it going. So, sorry I missed the Commissioner's Court meeting the other day.
No problem.
But I'll be there this Monday.
All right. Have a good day. Thank you for being here. Anyone else? Denise, you have your hand up?
Yes, sir. Hello to everybody. I have one question. I may have missed this, so please let me know if I did. There was discussion about what constitutes a thoroughfare plan and what the parameters of the thoroughfare plan could entail, including the basis for a lot of the decisions that the committee is making was based on whether or not the thoroughfare plan could use eminent domain, whether or not a development was actually going to be utilized. So was that ever reduced to writing? Because at the time that you all were talking about it, I believe that Jeff was not present. So somebody, maybe next meeting, you could go through that, or was that going to be part of it? Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Denise. I believe I can answer your question. I think we do have a major thoroughfare plan policy or something related to greenfield roads, and it's that in general, not the specific certain circumstances, but in general, if a roadway is on the major thoroughfare plan, it makes sense. We would generally support that project, provided it was developed in conjunction, that route was developed in conjunction with the development of the property. We do not support the city going out on its own initiative and creating that roadway or capturing that right-of-way by eminent domain prior to the property being developed. Hopefully that clarifies it. Okay. Thank you all for your time and work today. We covered a little bit more ground. And if you need a copy of the policy statement, the minutes, or the agenda, there's a couple of extras up here. We will see you in 2 weeks.